So, good morning. Happy early Passover, Azizim Pesach.
Isn't it spring? Spring today? Isn't it spring?
Spring today. It's the 20th, isn't that tomorrow?
5:24 p.m.
Oh,
Okay.
Today, 5:24. Looks like it outside, Bob. Not quite. Okay, so what I wanted to do today, whoa, I'm shaky today, is talk about one of my favorite parts of Passover, which is the Afikoman. I want to talk about both a little bit of the history of the Afikoman and a lot of readings. And just as a start and a starting point, when we do the Afikoman, where do we do it in the order of the Passover Seder, if you remember? And what do we say? Anyone remember?
It's right. It's between it's between the meal and the birkat.
Okay, right. Kadesh, Orchatz, Karpas, Yachatz, Magid, Rachatza, Motzi, Matzah, Maror, Korech, Shulchan, Orech. That's the meal. Safun, Barech, Halel, Nirtza, right? The 14 or 15 steps, right? As Ron said, the Afikomen is between the actual meal and then those who do a second half of a Seder, the Birkat Hamazon, the grace after meals. So, right, it is the end, it is sort of towards the end of the Seder, and that's Afikomen. Oh, what was the second question? I asked two questions. What do we say when we eat the Afikomen? Anyone know? Do we say anything?
I believe it's nothing.
Do we say it's delicious?
Not at that point of the meal.
You say to the kids, don't look where I'm putting it away.
Yeah, right. So we're gonna look a little bit about the hide and the seek aspect. Bob, did you want to say something?
You just eat it, right? No bracha.
Definitely no bracha. Although that's a question. Yeah, it's a question that's actually going to come up because when we eat the matzah first, what do we say at the Seder?
Motzi.
How many blessings do you say when you eat the matzah?
2.
Al achilas matzah.
Right, we actually say 2 blessings before we eat the matzah. We say hamotzi lechem min haaretz.
Yeah.
Right, we say the blessing for bread because matzah is technically bread. And then we say the specific blessing al achilat matzah, fulfilling the commandment of eating matzah, of which the Torah requires us to eat on the first night of Passover, or on Seder nights. So we say 2 blessings, and then we eat, right? But when we eat the Afikomen to end, we actually don't say a blessing. Different Haggadot have different things to say. They have kavanot, they have intentions that they say like there's a reason, and they'll give a reason why we're eating the Afikomen, which we'll get to. Okay, any other introductions? Anyone like, is Afikomen a high point of their Seders? No? Am I the only person?
It was always a fun time at a Seder.
It's fun. Why? Who's it designed for at your Seder?
For the kids.
It's designed to keep the kids, right, attention and the kids engaged.
And awake.
And awake, right? So what you might know if you've studied Passover and the laws of Passover and the way that the Seder is organized, the rabbis are actually very concerned from thousands of years ago that the children stay awake and engaged at a Seder. And that's why we have the leeway to really, depending on the audience, depending on who's sitting around the Seder table, we design it specifically to get everyone engaged, regardless of age, or in particular with age. And we do certain things to keep kids engaged. And 2,000 years ago, the rabbis, and we'll take a look and are giving a long intro, the rabbis actually talk about that this is one of the ways we engage kids in Seder. is with, they don't say it's afikomen, but they say the sort of hide and seek that oftentimes we do. Okay. Last question, which is, and we'll get to this, I'm sort of doing everything else. Afikomen is in what language?
Greek.
Okay, probably Greek. How do you know that? Are you a Greek speaker?
It's what they taught me in Hebrew school.
That's what they taught you at Hebrew school. So why would we have one of the, classic parts of a Passover Seder be Greek?
We have other customs at the Seder that are Greek.
Mm-hmm. Like what?
Reclining.
Reclining, the tvilot, when you dip things in salt water or in other parts of the Seder. Yeah, the reclining mostly.
It's actually many elements, right? We're not going to talk about it here, but the 4 cups of wine parallel at a Greek symposium, which was sort of like the classic gathering meal that the Greeks had, where they often did sort of talking, and they had discussions, and they had, they learned together and they learned from each other. There always were 4 toasts made at it, right? And that parallels the 4 cups of wine. Always began with a first course, oftentimes dippings, vegetables, right? And we have karpas, which also potentially could be a Greek word, right? And there's like so many other parallels. In general, we say, and the Seder itself came at a time when Greco-Roman culture was sort of considered the high point of culture. And oftentimes, Jews and other people, you sort of look to whoever the sort of high point of society is, and you sort of model yourselves after them. So, okay. I think that's enough of a prelude for Afikomen. Let's look at some sources. Is that okay? Anyone want to be a reader?
Okay.
Okay. Okay. So let me just take a look at what we want to look at. Okay. Okay. Thanks, Lynn. Let me figure out where we are. Safaria. All right. We're going to go to I got a lot of text, so I gotta figure out which one we're gonna do today. Okay. It's thinking. Okay. Will you read the...
One does not conclude.
Yep. This is from the Mishnah. Yeah. Okay.
One does not conclude after the Paschal Lamb with an afikomen.
Okay. Pretty clear, right? What does that mean?
You have to do it before. Or you can't end with that.
This is sort of hard to understand what this means. One does not conclude after eating the Passover offering, which was the lamb. Do we eat that anymore today? No, because the temple doesn't exist, right? That's why we have the zroa, the shank bone, which is a reminder of it on our Seder plate. We don't conclude with an afikomen. Does it describe what an afikomen is here? Right, so we don't know. It's sort of, to us, this is obtuse. We're not really sure what the Mishnah is talking about. So then the Talmud says this.
it is after the Paschal lamb that one may not conclude with an afikomen. However, after matzah, one does conclude with an afikomen.
So again, sort of unclear, but it says that if you don't eat the Paschal lamb, but if you eat matzah, you can conclude with an afikomen. Still sort of unclear what the rabbis are talking about 2,000 years ago. Okay, you want to read this?
One may not conclude the Pesach meal with an afikomen. Saul Lieberman, the great Talmudic scholar of the past century, explained that afikomen refers to a Greco-Roman custom to engage in revelry at the conclusion of the symposium, the formal meal. People would go from house to house, drinking and carousing.
Okay, so
sounds like Purim.
So in Greco-Roman cultures, after the symposium, right, that sort of meal that we patterned the Seder afterwards, when they finished in one home, one gathering, they would go to another one. You would go from party to party until late in the night, right? And you would drink and party and carouse, whatever that means, from place to place. And that was afikoman. Does that sound like what we do?
Not at all.
No, but it sounds like the Maimona.
Oh, sounds like a maimuna. Okay, for those of us who don't know what a maimuna is, what's that?
It's a custom in North African Jewish communities, Morocco, or I can't remember the other country, that they end after Passover. They have a big feast and they go from home to home and they treat everybody with sweets and good food. And that sounds like that to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It does a little bit. Yeah. Maimuna is a really great custom. And they make a quick making bread, correct? A quick rise bread that they make and they eat. Okay, ready, Lynn? Then, Now this is the Shulchan Aruch, the legal code from only 500 years ago.
After one finished the meal, they should eat shmura matzah, that is under a cloth, one kizayit for each person.
Kazayit is the minimal amount. It's the size of an olive. Like what's the smallest amount that one person should eat? Okay. And why are we doing it?
As
Keep
a
going.
memorial for the Passover offering that was eaten to satiety. And we eat
Satiety.
Yeah, like satiate.
Yeah,
Satiety.
to be full. Yeah.
Yeah. And we eat it reclining and we do not say a separate blessing upon it. And one should be careful to eat it before midnight. Why?
Why? Lynn asked, why?
Because it's already the next day after midnight.
Because it's already the next day. Because according to this reading, what does the matzah that we call the afikomen, that we eat later in the meal, represent?
The dessert.
Not just the dessert. If you're a Hebrew reader.
Zecher lePesach.
Zecher lePesach. Not just Zecher lePesach. This is a reminder of the Paschal lamb, which our ancestors ate. There were very specific laws about the Paschal lamb, how it was eaten, and when it was eaten. Guess when the last time you were allowed to eat the Paschal lamb on the night of Seder was?
At midnight.
Right, at midnight. So,
which of course is not midnight 12 o'clock. It's
rabbinic
through the
midnight.
Dark hours.
It's rabbinic midnight, which is half of the night. Yeah, but I mean that's what midnight really means. But yeah, half of the night. So the Paschal lamb, you needed to complete your eating of that meal by the middle of the night. So the rabbis are now applying.
Is that the entire meal, or when is actually halachic midnight, approximately, in real time?
Well, you just asked two different questions.
Okay.
Yes, the entire meal, right? Because as
Okay.
we do it, we do it as the rabbis say, this was your dessert, right? Ne'echal ahasovea, right? This or sova, right? Yeah, Ruth, you're correct. Sova.
Al Hasova.
Thank you. I know I get my Hebrew helper here, right? This is until you are full, right? So you do not eat anymore after this. Like at our Seder, we eat dessert and then we have the afikoman because the afikoman is the last dessert. As amazing desserts as we have at our Seder, this is the ultimate dessert. You do not eat after. You're allowed to drink wine still because we still have 2 more cups of wine actually, but no more eating. What was the second question you asked, Eric?
In practical terms, what does that really mean in terms of the clock?
I have an
The
app.
reason
I
I
can tell
ask
you.
is
I can
that
tell
at
you
one
for
time,
this year. Yeah, go
many
ahead.
times, many years ago, I went to a very frum Seder, and I remember them starting the meal very late, and there's no way that we finished before clock midnight.
Middle of the night this year on first night of Seder is 1:29 a.m.
Okay,
Right?
that
Is that right? No,
matches.
wait. No, that was middle of the day. Hold on, I got to get you middle of the night.
It would be the same.
Yeah, 1:29 a.m.
Okay, that actually.
You can still do more of your right because then you do Birkat Hamazon and you do Hallel and there's still stuff to do. So yeah, so
All right,
that's a
thanks.
Seder that can end after 2 o'clock in the morning.
And I've been to a couple of those. Thanks.
Yeah.
That word you stumbled over.
Sova.
Yeah, I'm looking at that word, and since I'm not a Hebrew, not a linguist for sure, and I'm looking at that, and I'm seeing Shavuos in there.
Yeah, it's ve'achalta ve'savata uverachta. You shall eat, you shall be satisfied, and you shall bless. Yeah.
I know. I'm saying I'm seeing the word for Shavua in there. Is
Well, Sheva.
is there any?
Maybe it's connected to Sheva, which means 7 is complete and whole. But Ruth or Judy, our Hebrew speakers, if you have any better ideas, I'll take it.
It's the same letters, but I don't know if there is any connection. I don't know.
I'll have to ask. Cantor Rosenbaum is a linguist, so maybe she has a good idea. I do have a book upstairs that'll tell us. So maybe if you give me a minute, I'll run up to my one of my funky dictionaries I have. Okay, so the other sort of important thing here, as we said, right? You eat it reclining. I don't know if you do that typically when you have your afikoman. Why do we eat it reclining, you think? Any ideas? What else do we do reclining?
Reclining? Is that what?
Yeah. Why?
I don't remember.
Or what else do we do reclining?
Well, we all the all 4 cups of wine were recline. I remember that. I don't know about the eating matzah during the motzi matzah phase, but definitely the 4 cups.
Yeah. I think it's related to like everything you're supposed to do that you're like required to do. You should be reclining like a free person. And maybe, we don't eat the Paschal lamb anymore, right? But maybe you were supposed to eat the Paschal lamb reclining. And if this is sort of the stand-in for the Paschal lamb, then we do it reclining. Or maybe it's just so late in the night that you can't sit up straight. Right? And velo yivarech alav, and we don't say a special blessing upon it. Okay? So now we want to shift source sheets. Okay. Any other reactions before we switch source sheets for a second?
I have a question.
Yes.
Why do we have to finish it to eat it before midnight?
Because this is the stand-in for the Passover offering that we don't do anymore because the temple is The temple doesn't exist. The Pesach. So this is, you saw that, right? You end with it. That was supposed to be the end point, the last thing that you ate. You had to complete your eating that night, in the middle of the night, because it was the day. That day ended.
Okay.
Also, what? Yeah. But it's a good question. The rabbis are very focused on time and the importance of time. Okay, so let me just stop the share for a second. So, if I was going to ask you, what does afikomen mean? Based on all this, what is the importance of afikomen? What does afikomen mean?
The dessert.
Dessert. It means dessert, and it's a very filling dessert, right? And a delicious dessert. What else does afikomen mean?
It reminds us of the story when the Jews were leaving Egypt, they had to eat the Paschal lamb quickly. So maybe that's why it has to be before midnight, because they had to finish and leave.
Yeah, they did. They did have to get ready for the journey. It's true. Any other thoughts? Because now we're going to get into some more like meanings of the afikomen, like more not literal. Yeah, Bob?
Well, the rule is that the Paschal lamb cannot be eaten after that one day. So anything, the Paschal lamb had to be consumed. If you didn't finish it, too bad.
And you were supposed to join families together, right? If you remember, right? Like if you had a small family and you had a big lamb, right? You were supposed to, it didn't have to be every family per lamb. You would join together with others, right? And part of that, Bob, connects with Ruth's because you are preparing for the actual Exodus. They ate this before they had a Seder before they left Egypt. This was part of the Egyptian Seder, Pesach Mitzrayim. Okay, now we're going to get to some sort of more different meanings of it. And Lynn, you want to be a reader again?
Okay, if you
Put
want.
you to work. Put you to work. Okay. Okay, this is tiny. Let me see if I can blow it up. Ooh.
Okay, that works for me.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah?
it actually goes down, so I'm going to have to scroll down for you. But it's
Okay.
by a woman named Gila
Yeah,
Kletenik called, we didn't say this yet, but in the order, the Kadesh, Orchatz, Karpas, Yachatz, it doesn't say Afikomen. It's not called Afikomen. It's called Safun,
Boom.
which means hidden.
Hidden. Yeah.
Means hidden. Right? So right again, it's our custom to hide the afikomen. So now we're going to get to some like reasons why or writings why. So something about hiddenness. So and this is taken from a Food and Justice Haggadah by Uri Litzedek. If you know them, they are an open Orthodox social justice network. Okay?
Okay.
Hiddenness and hope.
Hiddenness and hope come together as we bring the afikomen to the table. This hidden half of the broken matzah, stolen away by the children.
I can't hear you. Lynn? Lynn? Can other people not hear Lynn?
Yeah, I cannot hear her.
No.
Mic was open, but I couldn't hear her.
Yeah, Lynn, your audio went out. You are unmuted. It just we can't hear you. I don't know what you did.
Mm-mm.
All of a
You're-
sudden, we lost her after the
Yeah.
first seconds.
Yeah. All right. Someone want to take over this hidden half? Anyone else want to be a reader or me?
I can read it.
Thank you.
This hidden half of the broken matzah stolen away by the children is retrieved ceremoniously and eaten, our just dessert. Its taste will be our final taste of food for the evening. The hope is that it will linger long into the night. Tradition teaches that this half of the matzah represents the redemption hidden away for the Israelite people. While the first half of the matzah symbolizes our past, the slavery and the redemption from Egyptian bondage, the second half is the future, as it is handed to us by our children, our most potent of hopes.
I'm going to pause you here. We didn't say this. Physically, what is the actual matzah we eat that is becomes the afikomen?
It's the big half of the middle matzah.
Yeah, the larger half of the middle matzah that we break at yachatz, right? So, right, I mean, I thought this was really beautiful, right? That the first half of the matzah, right, symbolizes our past, slavery and redemption. The second half, right, which our children find and hand to us, is our future. I thought that was a really beautiful image. Okay, keep going.
It is with the very similar secretive hiding of a child that our story commences. We are told that Yocheved, lo Yocheved lehitzpano.
Easy for you to say, lahatz peno. Yep.
לא יכלה להצפינו.
All right, I always listen to Ruth. I trust her
לא
implicitly.
יכלה.
Sorry about that, Bob. We should have just let Ruth do it. Yeah, go ahead, Bob.
Could no longer hide Moshe, who is, of course, our hidden hero of the Haggadah. His frightened mother places him in a tar-coated basket into the Nile, concealing him yet further. Her hope hinges on his hiddenness. Moshe's beginning as a child hidden away foreshadows that which will come. He is raised in the Egyptian palace with a hidden Jewish identity and is later forced to escape into further hiding. Moshe, our champion of social justice, later returns to his people to be the harbinger of hope. However, to do so, he must first emerge from his own hiddenness.
Okay, what do you think? Do you see where they're going with this?
I think it's beautiful.
Yeah, I was really moved when I read this. Okay. Okay, here we go. Karl Marx.
I didn't know we were going to quote him today.
I know, I didn't know either until I read this. Okay.
Karl Marx critiqued religion by arguing that it is passive by perpetuating the status quo. Our Tanakh concerning social change sees matters differently. The retrieval of our own redemption, the realization of the prophetic promise of a time when the oppressed will be free, the downtrodden uplifted, and the persecuted dignified, may be hidden away. But it is neither in heaven nor beyond the sea. Rather, it is very near in our hands. Indeed, as Rabbi Akiva famously responded to Tornus Rufus's challenge about the Lord's ostensible indifference to human suffering, it is our responsibility, not God's. Talmud.
I know. Now, yeah, that was like a little sermonette, little. Now we're going to get back to the punchline. Okay.
That Safun hidden shares the letters and sounds of Lahitzapot, or to anticipate, as in Sepia, Legula, or hope for redemption. I read my Hebrew with Hebrew letters usually.
I know it's easier for some of us. Yeah.
Is no accident. Our redemption can only be a concrete hope when we are moved to draw it forth from its hiddenness. Halacha requires that the afikomen emerge from its hiding place as chatzot, midnight, is upon us. The message is clear. Only through concrete action to rectify the injustices surrounding us might we actually move ourselves from the thick darkness of exile into the light of redemption.
Thank you for reading. Obviously, this is a social justice Haggadah based in sources. So, they every single stage they feel us read a social justice message, right? But here I thought it was really beautiful, this idea that really the entire Exodus story begins from a point of hiddenness and then revealing, and starting with basically Moses's mother hiding him and Moses revealing himself and sort of being the one with God, to help bring freedom. Other comments, thoughts? Yeah.
The one other hidden feature to Moses was his inability to speak.
Yeah. 100%.
I think the idea that the Seder is at midnight. It talks about midnight.
Yeah. There's lots of beautiful things. Okay, now.
So we're in darkness.
Yeah. Now we're going to go to another source sheet. If I can figure out how to do this. Oh. Okay, here we go. Okay. So can I have another reader?
I'll read.
Okay, Jackie, you want to read now? These are a couple other commentaries on Afikomen. This is first from a Sephardic Passover Haggadah by Rabbi Mark Angel.
The afikomen is eaten at the end of the meal when one is full and satisfied. This is a hint that the good of the world will be merited by one who has a generous eye, who is satisfied and happy with what they have in this world. The afikomen is a broken piece of matzah to symbolize that in this world we have only part of the good, the remainder being stored away for us in the world to come and in messianic times.
All right, what do you think about that?
Interesting.
Hopeful, right? More to come. Okay. All right, Rabbi Sachs.
Should I continue?
Sure.
At the end of the meal, we eat the other half of the broken matzah. This symbolizes the Paschal offering, which in temple times was eaten at the end of the meal. It should be eaten before midnight. Tradition has given the name afikomen to this mitzvah. It derives from the Mishnah, cited in answer to the wise son, that we do not conclude with anything after the afikomen. Most scholars conjecture that the origin of the word is the Greek epikomen, which meant a drinking party. The Greeks would often end a festive meal by visiting friends.
Yeah.
More text.
And engaging.
And engaging in a night of drinking and conversation. Plato describes such an event in the Symposium. The sages ruled that such social activities were forbidden on Pesach. One should finish the evening with the taste of holy food in one's mouth. Hence, the last part of the matzah became the Jewish afikomen, a sign of difference between the Jewish and the Greek culture, between holiness and hedonism. It is no coincidence that whereas Greek culture rapidly disintegrated after the days of Alexander the Great, Judaism sustained its spiritual and moral energies throughout the many crises of its history.
And I like the line from Rabbi Sachs, one should finish the evening with the taste of holy food in one's mouth. Right? That should be the last taste that you have is matzah.
But yet we drink 2 more glasses of wine after that.
Well, you know. You know.
Because there's the drunk part from the Greeks.
Yeah, but the goal is not, their goal was to get drunk. Our goal is not to get drunk. Our goal is to celebrate, the redemption and to toast and honor God in that way. Okay. Jackie, you want to read a little more?
Okay. As we complete the meal with afikomen, we pray that our lives always be filled not only with finding the material needs that we require, but the spiritual sustenance as well. May this afikomen, as the last food we will eat tonight, satiate us with the spiritual hope it represents, a sense of completeness and belief in a new spiritual awakening and redemption.
Right, that's what we said before. So there are different texts that people do say when they eat the afikomen, depending on what Haggadah you have. So, right, this is one of the texts. Eat while reclining and say, sorry, Bob, I didn't type it in Hebrew. I just typed it in English. Zecher lekorban Pesach hanechal asova. In remembrance of the Passover offering eaten after satiation. That's not a blessing, but it's a designation that I'm not just eating a piece of matzah, right? I'm not just eating dessert, but I'm eating this in place of and remembering the Paschal lamb that was offered by our ancestors.
I'd like to
When
go
we're
back to the
satisfied.
last one for a second.
Yeah?
About the completeness.
Yes.
I'm thinking about we eat the first half of that broken matzah before the meal and the second half of it after the meal, and we bring it back together in completeness.
Yes. Yeah, in one of the sources, I'm not sure it's one of the ones we're going to look at, it talks about that, the idea of that the goal of Passover and redemption is completion, 100%. And for some of them have like some guided questions, like what does this inspire you to do? What have you not yet completed in your life that this is going to push you to do? Thanks, Ron. Okay. She has more. She has one more piece. Jackie, if you want to read, the rabbis structured the Seder. Oh, you're still there, Jackie? I'll take that as a no. The rabbi structured the Seder version of the afikomen to take the place of the Passover offering. That's why we should consume it before midnight, just as the Passover offering had to be. This portion of the middle matzah is to be as our afikomen, which we translate as dessert, with nothing coming afterwards. Thus, the last taste of the Seder leaves us with the same flavor in our mouths, whether rich or poor. Some have the custom of putting aside a piece of the afikomen to eat it on Pesach Sheni, exactly 1 month later, on the 14th of Iyar. Has anyone ever done this before?
My mother used to take a piece of the afikomen and put it away for the next Pesach. Not for Pesach Sheni.
Yes.
Wow.
I was going to ask the group. At my husband's family, they used to take a small piece of the afikoman, keep it for next year. When you do biur chametz, you add it to whatever you collected. And I was wondering if
my father did the same thing.
And my father also.
Wow, beautiful.
My son puts his over the door.
Over the door?
Yes, there is a story,
protection.
but by Frischman, I think, about the matzah that they used to hang up a matzah the whole year. Yes.
Over the front door?
I don't know over which door, but they used to hang it up as a picture of some symbol. Yes.
It's supposed to provide protection, and don't ask me how that works, but it's also that you're guaranteed that you'll have matzahs to start the next Seder.
Oh, beautiful.
Isn't matzah also used somehow in creating an eruv? Seems to me there was some story about that in Sfat when I was there.
Yeah, well, you have to have a meal, right? So you need an egg and bread. Yeah. That sort of seals the deal that it's like one larger community. So I guess you can use matzah is bread. Yeah.
Yeah, but we used when we moved to a new house, we always, my mother said, you have to have a few things with you when you go to a new house.
Yeah.
Neot, bread, but it didn't specify matzah, it just said bread.
Salt, also salt.
Salt,
Bread and salt.
matate.
Yeah.
How do you say matate? Broom.
And a broom.
Yeah.
By the way, there is a custom to keep your lulav until Pesach.
Yes.
And that you sweep out your house, and that you do the bior. That you burn.
Yes.
You burn in the
Yes.
fire. Yeah.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, interesting. All right, we're gonna go to Rabbi Riskin's last. It's a little longer, so the last one from this page is Rabbi Steinsaltz. Jackie, you back? You want to read?
Yeah, I'm back. I
Okay.
got a glass of water.
Here, it's all good.
Yeah, some sages protested against the custom of stealing the afikomen, arguing that it is poor education for children. It teaches them to steal, even if the deed is done with everyone's consent. But most communities do continue this tradition since it adds an aspect of joy to the festival, and especially because it encourages the children to remain awake and intensifies their memories of the Seder night. Since this educational aspect is also a consideration, and preserving the children's memories is one of the most important principles of the Seder night, there is no reason to be concerned about any negative side effects of theft.
What do you think about that?
Interesting.
That might be why some customs are that the leader hides it, the children find it. So there is no theft involved.
There is
Correct.
no theft involved, and the children are participating, and they are so happy to see. I remember my grandchildren when they were all waiting to find. They are looking where the father is putting away the afikoman, and they are looking all over to find it. I don't look at it as stealing. I look at it as finding, helping to find it. And
Yeah, well, that
their
turns it
awareness of
around.
the holiday.
Yeah,
My
it's all
children
about
are a
search.
product of a mixed marriage. Barbara's
Yeah.
family hid the matzah. My family, the matzah was put between my grandfather's pillows, and then you had to try and steal it. So,
We're
in
going
our
to talk
family-
about that. That was Rabbi Feinstein's position. Yeah. So there are some very famous rabbis that always kept the afikomen right next to them when they led the Seder. Yeah. So
Rabbi, I
they.
have a question. I signed
Yeah.
in late. Maybe you covered it, but before we conclude, could you say a few words about kitnios? Is that a cultural
Kitnio.
thing or something else? Is it vary by culture?
Yeah, 2 minutes. Let me just finish this one thing I was going to say about Bob, and then I'll give you the 2 minutes on Kitnio, and then we'll finish with Rabbi Riskin on afikomen. We've only been talking about afikomen, but yeah. Bob, what I was going to say is that there's some belief that the afikomen had to be shmura, that had to be watched and protected. And that sort of came from that idea, I think, that you were talking about your grandfather, and that these rabbis, they would sort of watch over it and protect it. And then they actually didn't even do the hiding or the stealing or the taking from. Then they watched it the whole Seder, and then they presented it to everyone to be the concluding thing that everyone would eat. So, right, there are customs where there isn't any of the hiding and the theft and the reward and the payment and all those, the gifts or whatever else. But it was just that it was watched, because the idea, you've heard of shmora matzah, which means watch matzah, right? So that actually the rabbis applied that specifically to the afikomen, which had a very specific part as being the final thing that we ate. So now kitniot, and then we'll get to the last comment that I wanted to look at with regarding afikomen. Kitniot, legumes, right? What do we do regarding legumes? We follow so number one, this is all a personal choice. Sephardic Jews eat kitniot on Pesach. For them, it is 100% kosher for Passover. Ashkenazic Jews, it is a custom not to eat in general. For 1,000 years, it's been a custom not to eat kitniot, which are legumes, beans and rice and corn and other things like that. It's a custom not to eat that on Pesach, established basically from about 1,000 years ago. In the last 20 to 30 years, after scholarship and study, the conservative movement has made a legal ruling that it is 100% acceptable for Ashkenazic conservative Jews to eat kitniot, although that you should follow the tradition that is most meaningful to you. And a couple of the reasons why they have, I don't know if the right word is allowed, but now given a permission to eat kitniot are, number one, there is an idea that kitniot never were chametz. It's never considered chametz. And the idea Sephardic Jews have always eaten them. And if we're like really one people, we're am echad b'lev echad, that this doesn't have to be a dividing line that distinguishes us and separates us and makes us different, but we should be following one practice because we're all one Jewish world. Number two is there's a higher rate of vegetarians that don't eat meat, and in order to have protein and stuff, right, all the things that are kitniot, are basically are vegetarian proteins. So there's just a recognition of health and healthy eating nowadays. That's number two. Number three is, and this is really the main focus of the rabbis and the tshuvot, is that it was a ruling that was first established that Ashkenazic Jews don't eat kitniot based on a moment in time in the world. There was a grain shortage in 1200 and 1300 in Europe, where the Jews were where Ashkenazic Jews were based. There was a grain shortage, and they couldn't grow wheat. And in place of wheat, they used rice and bean flour, which were rice and beans, which they ground, and they used them in place of wheat flour. And then for some time afterwards, it was a mixture. When they started to grow wheat successfully and get wheat back, they would do a percentage of rice flour and a percentage of wheat flour, and they never distinguished. So you didn't actually know what you were getting when you had the flour. And the rabbis were concerned that there would be a mixture of the chametz wheat with the rice, and that they sort of were synonymous. So the rabbis said, you can't have rice or any legumes, any kitniot, because you didn't know if there was chametz in it. At some point, that reality of the world, of the European Ashkenazic world ended, and, wheat production continued and the other things, but this prohibition of eating kitniot remained until today. And conservative rabbis have identified that reality of a wheat shortage from 700 years ago doesn't exist anymore. So we don't have to hold to this unnecessary stricture. There are lots of other reasons too. Nowadays, it's a little bit more common. You can actually find kosher for Passover kitniot products in stores now, which you couldn't before. If you live in Israel, it's much more readily available, obviously because of the large Sephardic population, Mizrahi population, it was never a problem. So the short answer is what that tshuva ends with is you should do minhag avotenu. You should sort of follow your family custom, but there is 100% permission for you to eat kitniot if you want on Pesach. So did that answer the question, Elliot?
Thank you for your in-depth answer, Rabbi. I appreciate it. But one more profound question. You may want to do a whole session on it. I want to know if shmura matzahs are accepted by schnorrers.
There you go. I like that. That's a good joke. We can always take some good Jewish humor. You should see if that's in History of the World Part 2 with Mel Brooks. I don't know if that joke is there. Yeah, Ruth?
My kids call it shvura matzah. It's always broken.
Oh, because it's broken. Because it's all
Shvura
broken
matzah.
and crumbly. Yeah, yeah. So, the kitniot is a good question. In general, we've been advocating it. I mean, on behalf of the conservative movement for a number of years. It first was established just by if you know, the conservative movement has two different bodies which make halachot or make tshuvot, and psak there's an Israeli rabbinic group for conservative rabbis, and then there's the international or American. So first, the Israeli ones, did the permission to eat kitniot first, because again, it was much more readily available, and much more kitniot available products there, kosher the Pesach. And then later on, more than 10 years ago, the American or the International Rabbinical Assembly adopted that position.
Does that include peanut butter?
Yeah, actually, there's a question of whether peanuts are kitniot or not themselves, because they're closer to, I think, a fruit or something else than kit. I don't think peanuts are technically kitniot. This is what we've always said for peanut butter. If you don't want to buy that, they do make kosher for Passover peanut butter, I think. But if you don't want to buy it, what we hold is acceptable is to go to one of the local grocery stores, a Whole Foods, a Heinen's, a Miles Market. If they just, they have machines that grind the peanut butters, but don't add anything. As long as it's all natural, that is 100% kosher for Passover. Same thing with almond and cashew. They make those butters locally. Without any additives or anything else. You don't need a special hechsher for it. They're not adding anything else. That's it. It's raw. It's good. Yes, Elliot.
Yeah, Rabbi, you want to say a word or two about egg matzahs? I love them, but I know they're not accepted.
Sure. So it's not that they're not acceptable or accepted. The idea is matzah is flour and water that are those are the only two ingredients, and there's a whole time factor too. You probably know, from the moment the flour meets the water to the point it takes out of the oven, baked, has to be 18 minutes. Egg matzah is made with its flour and water plus something else, whether it's egg or sometimes it's fruit juice or something else that's flavored. So, right, that's why you'll see on the box it'll say, right, to be used by someone who is infirm, or I don't know, whatever their language is, because it's a question of, is it, not that it's not kosher for Passover, but it's not matzah. It's not technically flour and water plain, right? This is supposed to be plain flour and water. So it doesn't fulfill the mitzvah for the Seder night. Seder night has to be that just, and there's a specific amount you're supposed to eat just that night. Yes.
Right.
Halina.
Yeah, I always thought that the kitniot was, thank you for clarifying it in your answer, that the kitniot, because it took time to cook them, you have to first lehashrot, how do you say it?
Yeah, so right, what Halina is saying is that it is almost like it rises or ferments or something, right? But that's technically not the issue that the rabbis have. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I wanted to say something about the peanuts. I
Yes.
remember as a child, when during the rationing in Israel, people couldn't get walnuts or any other nuts, and the rabbis allowed then, so many years ago, to use peanuts. So I never thought of peanuts as something not kosher for Passover.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Okay, well, it's 11 o'clock now. We're not going to get the last thing, but Pesach questions are really important. Let me just throw in the chat. I wanted to read this commentary from Rabbi Riskin. So if anyone wants to, I thought it was interesting. I'll throw it in the chat. It's right here. And obviously, if there are any other Pesach questions that come up that you have, or things that you want to know, or anything else, don't hesitate to reach out to me or to the other clergy, because we want to make sure that you have a Zisin and a kosher Pesach, that it is a happy, healthy, and kosher Passover. And look forward to learning with you all soon. Thanks for the readers and for all the help.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Bye-bye.
Rabbi, there's an old
Oh, yeah.
message on the net when you try to sign in. It says class scheduled to November a year ago, whatever.
I know. I
You
don't
should
know.
be aware of that.
I know. I don't know what Zoom is. Zoom is Zoom.
Zoom is Zoom. Next class is in 2 weeks, right?
God willing. Yeah.
God willing. Okay.
Yeah. All right. Bye, everybody.
Okay.